Hello, welcome to Design Time. I'm Jackie Lacey. We had someone write in and ask if we could share a little bit of information about how to incorporate Calla Lilies into your everyday designs, your event. Just use them, actually. Calla Lilies are one of the more often requested floral products, especially when it comes to weddings, sympathy, things that they're generally known for. And the downside to using a Calla Lily is that the stem is very, very high in water content. So as you begin to push it in the foam, sometimes it can break, snap, bend, kind of curl up. If it's not cut properly, you will often find that the ends of the Calla Lily will also start to turn and just curl around a lot. Sometimes that's a positive and it looks really cool, but sometimes it can add an additional layer into your design that you might not be looking for. One of the most often used or ways to use Calla Lilies is just to incorporate it into a beautiful design like we have here. Looking at the beautiful fall mix, we're starting to see the fall colors being requested and come out in everyday designs, and just incorporating a couple of pieces is a great way to bump up the value of your design. Yes, we understand that Calla Lilies are expensive. That's why you can't use a lot of them. But often we will find that people will request Calla Lilies only, or do a beautiful fall mix like we've done here, incorporating it into a beautiful purple vase. It kind of adds that extra layer to the fall colors. And one of the great ways to use Calla Lilies like this, and I did a little trick here I could share with you, is to create a grid on top of your vase. It's best if it's glass, ceramic, something that the table really stick to. So I've created a grid. I will do a little bit of a green up here. We're just using a couple of different kinds of foliage. And then it's very easy to slip the Calla Lilies in and out, and that grid is going to help hold them in place easily. So this way, you get the Calla Lilies to stay where you want them to without having to add a ton of product. Again, Calla Lilies sometimes can be a little higher because it's really a flower that will hold its own. People see a Calla Lily and they see the true value that's in there. It's sort of like with the roses and the orchids, things like that. So Calla Lilies can stand on their own. You don't often need a ton of them. When we begin to look at other ways that we can incorporate them, keeping things simple is one of the best ways that I've seen to use Calla Lilies. Here we're actually looking at a little sort of a beach theme that we might have for a wedding. If I want to just simply swirl those Calla Lilies in the container, I'm going to manipulate the stem by holding it firmly and just putting pressure, and you can see how that Calla Lily begins to turn on its own. We're not affecting the vase life of the Calla Lily, we're just manipulating. Again, most of the stem of the Calla Lily is water. I've cut it at a bit of an angle so that as I insert it into those stones, it curls very cool around the inside of that container. This is also a great way to utilize those if your Calla Lily tends to be turned in a direction that maybe doesn't quite work with your design. Simply manipulate like I'm doing here to add that little bit of a curve in there and get that to turn exactly the way you might need it in a glass container like we've got here. I'm just putting a little bit of the edge down underneath the stone so we don't see that raw edge. You can add a couple of pieces of bear grass in there. Again, just to add a little bit of foliage and some interest into the design. That way it's not just the floral product. And then maybe polish that off because people will be looking into the center of it by just using a beautiful sunflower head tucked right down inside there, sort of that monochromatic colors that we're adding in there. Or do a little Galax rose. That provides a little bit of interest that tucks down in. Or if the budget allows, you can even do both and you have a beautiful finished product. Again, very simple, very easy. This is a great concept to use for your events. Same thing will work in a bubble bowl that gets a little taller. Again, we're just going to manipulate the stem a bit there by reflexing it, pushing on that, tuck it right underneath your stones, and that beautiful color with the black stones added in there. Add that upscale appearance as we know calla lilies can do. When it comes to foam, one of the things that I'm going to suggest that you do that I find works really well, when we begin to do our design, I like to put the more challenging floral product in first and then layer in your foliage. If you do a whole green up and then add your flowers, what you're actually doing is accenting your foliage with your floral product. It really should be the other way around. Put your flowers in position and then begin to layer in your foliage, more flowers if you had, and then finally cover up your mechanics with those final pieces of foliage. But as we begin to do this design, because calla lilies often are used for sympathy work, and you've got those beautiful open cut calla lilies that you can buy on the market, you need to sort of help it, because if we just start to push in, it may or may not go in there. So I like to take the end of my cutter, sort of create a beginning for that calla lily so that we can get it pitched in there exactly the way we want. Now, if we didn't want to play with the curve of that, but we wanted it more straight on, you can see how you can manipulate the positioning of the calla lily very easily. Again, this is turned in a different direction than I would like to see, so I'm going to help what nature didn't do by reflexing and relaxing that a little bit, because I'd really like for it to be more sort of straight on, to add that exquisite, polished look to this particular design with the positioning. And then the final one that we'd pop in there is going to be a little bit lower. You can even use the butt end of your knife so that you are not destroying the stems of the calla lily. Now, I would suggest at this point you begin to add your foliage in whatever manner you're going to. And then you can continue to layer in whatever product you want to add in there. In this particular event piece here, we simply let the calla lily speak for itself. We've dressed up the container with a little bit of that rolled lace that's really popular right now that we're seeing, so it adds that historic, softer edge, great for a wedding or something like that. With just a couple of calla lilies tucked in there, some stones down at the bottom, and then some lily grass wads that are adding a bit of that greenery. If you need to support the calla lilies, maybe you want them a bit taller, a great way to do that is to take some of your aluminum wire, create a little coil that puts on there. You can slip the stem of the calla lily in and then work that wire around to truly support your calla lily in whatever way you want to, and then insert it into the foam. Should you be looking to have a calla lily extend forward, perhaps, find the right length, the right calla lily to do that. Again, you're just going to slip it right through that coil, through the loops, and then you can pull that out to wherever you want that particular calla lily to be positioned. And you can see that it really supports it. It helps keep that curve without it snapping. Remember, if you apply too much pressure, it's going to bend, and that doesn't look very good in finished design. So just find your positioning, slip it through your support system. It adds sort of an artistic edge to it. You can reposition, you can tighten it up, loosen it up, whatever you might do for your particular design. When you're going into the foam and you've got the smaller mini calla lilies, I like to use a paintbrush because you can see how it's tapered down here. That way, as it slips in, it doesn't destroy the bottom where your stem is going to be resting, and it will allow it to drink. It just gives it that positioning so that you know exactly the direction that that might be going. Now lastly, we're going to look at how do I use calla lilies in a bridal bouquet. With today's market, we're seeing a request for more abstract, fun-filled designs, sort of like this. I would suggest to, again, decide where you want that calla lily to be positioned, because we'd actually be securing it. Calla lilies will hold up great without much of a water source. And then we're going to bind it. This happens to be white, so I might want to use the white tape, because I would imagine that you're going to finish this off with ribbon to give it that polished, professional finish. As it goes down, you start to attach it here. We might be doing 5 or 6 of these in here. Once we've got it secured a little bit, then we can decide which direction we want it to curve and wrap around. Now, tension is going to hold this one in place, but say we wanted it to be in exactly a secure spot. I'm just taking a little bit of that paper covered wire, and I'm going to wrap it around, because it will mimic the natural vines that I've added in here for that natural look, and you really won't be noticed that it's holding that calla lily exactly where I would like to put it. Again, these are not going to have a water source, and they'll hold up really well, but should I have it out of water source longer than is good for the floral product, this is a great way to keep it in place and it not start to limp out on you or start to look bad for those photographs as the day goes on. We know how hot it can get when we've got a wedding going on. What about if you're using a igloo, a holder of any kind like this? This has got Oasis Max Life, one of my favorites to use. A little trick that you can do is positioning that holder exactly where you would like for it to be. The important thing is that you've got a way to feed that water source to the calla lily so that it retains its rigidity. We're going to make a cascade, so I might want something long, and if I just kept pushing these into the foam, this would begin to break down. So for this, and I always like to use a knife to cut, that way I get a really good clean cut. I'm going to clip about 1 inch, 1.5 inches of the chenille stem. I'm pushing it down into the stem of the calla lily, and then I'm going to decide where I want that to be placed, and I barely put that into the foam. Look how strong that is. That chenille stem is holding the weight of this covered bridal bouquet and keeping it from going anywhere. Now again, we want to decide the length that we want ours to be. We're going to clip off 1 inch, 1.5 inches of that chenille stem. Carefully slip it in to the end of your calla lily stem, and then insert that into your foam. If it's going to be short, that's still okay, because you need to sort of set the tone for where you want those to fall. Same deal as the rest of them, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, goes down into the calla lily. This is a lot better than destroying your foam, and it still feeds the calla lily the proper amount of moisture to keep it alive. And then there you've got a beautiful beginning to a cascading bridal bouquet. I hope this will help you with using calla lilies in a better way and incorporating this very trendy flower in your designs as we go into the fall, in your wedding work, possibly in your event work or sympathy. Again, if you have suggestions for videos you would like to see or questions you would like for us to answer on Design Time, reach out to us by logging on and shooting us a message. Add the message right down at the bottom of Facebook when you see the video, or reach out to us in any way. Remember to check out all of our videos, our upcoming schedule on floriologyinstitute.com, and join us again next time for Design Time. If you enjoyed that video and you'd like to see more, click the subscribe button.